Welcome into the DePaul Hoops Podcast, brought to you by 199. 199.com, basketball historians bringing history to life with vintage DePaul basketball gear to make you feel like Aguirre in 1979. Go check them out at 199.com and pick up some of that vintage DePaul basketball gear today. On today's episode of the DePaud, it's a short game day preview episode, something a little bit new for us. We've got Connecticut Scoreboard Podcast, Jared Kotler on, sits down and talks with us for 10 minutes, a little bit about what to expect with this UConn team. So with that, let's jump into it. Welcome into the DePaul Hoops Podcast, brought to you by 99. Thanks again for joining me today, DePaul Blue Demon Nation. I appreciate you guys jumping in with me, taking the time to listen to this podcast as usual. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at the DePaud, and make sure you subscribe or subscribe on YouTube or subscribe to the podcast either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. First things first, we've got a good show for you all. We've got Jared Kotler from Connecticut Scoreboard Podcast. But before we get into that, let's talk about that Marquette game over the weekend. First half, team played really well, came out strong, hung in there with Marquette. And, you know, it was a sold out crowd at Wintrust Arena. Good atmosphere going in, especially with that score the way it was at halftime. And unfortunately, the guys couldn't get it done in the second half. Came out against one of the best offenses in the league, or in the country even, and unfortunately came up short against Marquette. That said, there were some Marquette fans in the student section for DePaul. Not ideal. And I think really what that says to me is that students need to do everything they can to make those fans uncomfortable, within reason, of course. Make those fans uncomfortable, make them know they're not welcome there, so that, you know, no matter what the game is, they don't belong there. That's not where Marquette fans belong in those situations. That's not where any opposing fan belongs. That's our student section. When I was a student, we made sure that there were no fans, there were no opposing fans in our student section. Own that space. That's your home. Protect that house and make sure that you guys do not let those opposing fans ever step foot again into our student section. So, that said, hopefully we don't see any UConn fans tomorrow in the student section. But let's jump into the Connecticut Scoreboard Podcast with Jared Kotler talking about the UConn team that's coming to Wintrust. All right, welcome in Jared Kotler from the Connecticut Scoreboard Podcast, talking a little bit today about the upcoming game tomorrow, or the upcoming game today if you're listening, against DePaul versus UConn in Chicago at Wintrust Arena. How are you doing today before we get into it?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on. Excited. It's been almost a week off for UConn basketball, so I'm excited to get some basketball back underway.
Yeah, you guys busy yourselves on Twitter a lot with some of that mundane daily arguments that you guys get into, infighting, and you guys are tracking like player plane travel and stuff like that too now.
It's a little bit of a cesspool right now, but we're a good group for the most part.
No, sounds good. So let's for why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast, the Connecticut Scoreboard Podcast, and we'll jump into the scouting report stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I host Connecticut Scoreboard Podcast. Been doing it for a few years now. Talk about all things Connecticut sports with obviously a big focus being on UConn. So feel free to check us out. Twitter at CT Scoreboard Pod on all the podcast players, YouTube. Get everything going. We do a cool NIL show with Alex Caravan, who's on the basketball team here. So he comes on a couple times a month. So get some interesting insight from him and get to see what it's like inside the team. So some cool stuff there. So highly recommend it to anyone who's got any interest in there.
Sounds good. No, I appreciate it. And so coming into tomorrow's game, we've got two teams kind of reeling a little bit, both losing 4 or 5. Give me your best breakdown of the UConn team right now, and what we should expect, the DePaul fans should expect tomorrow.
It's been tough. Yeah, as you mentioned, UConn in a little bit of a skid right now after getting off to that 14-0 start. It seems like there are a few different factors that have kind of caused them to stumble a little bit, but I really think this team is going to go into this game against DePaul pretty locked in. In the second half of the Xavier game last week when they played, UConn kind of turned things around a bit and took a 17-point deficit down to 1, had a couple chances to take the lead and beat Xavier and just couldn't get over the hump there. So I think this team's starting to feel a little bit more confident. During this stretch where they've struggled a little bit, they've been looking for a little bit more production out of the guards. And Tristan Newton, the past couple games, has really started to become more aggressive, as he was a little bit in the start of the season when Andre Jackson was out with an injured hand. So it's been nice to see Tristan get out there doing a little bit more, driving and attacking the basket. You'll know Tristan's on if he's making it to the free throw line. He's a great free throw shooter. Really good at drawing fouls. So if he's getting to the free throw line, you're seeing that aggression from the guards, particularly him. It then opens the game up a little bit more, and they're able to kick it out to some of the shooters, whether it's Alex Caravan, Jordan Hawkins, most prolifically. The game against Xavier put up 28 points and was 5 of 10 from 3. So this team's going to be able to do a little bit of everything offensively, and I didn't even mention the big guys down low and Adama Sanogo and Donovan Clingan coming off the bench. So they can really hit you with a bunch of weapons. I think one of the biggest weaknesses for them over this stretch has been their defense. And, they got beat off the bounce by everyone on St. John's when they had that home loss, which I think really caught everyone by surprise. You lose to Xavier and Marquette and Providence on the road, in the Big East, it's somewhat to be expected. But to lose at home to this year's St. John's team was a pretty tough one. So ever since then, the defense just hasn't been what it was earlier in the year. And Dan Hurley's a big man-to-man guy. He really never strays from that man defense, but UConn has started to play a little bit more zone lately. So if you look back at what they did against Xavier in the second half, making that comeback, they were playing some 1-3-1, 2-3 zone. And it seems like that's here to stay at least at some points in the game. So you might see a little bit of that tomorrow. Or today, rather, depending on when you're listening.
Right.
But it's going to be interesting to see how UConn comes into this game defensively, and whether they're getting beat off the dribble, which is something they've struggled with. They're pretty good at holding guys from 3, but getting beat off the dribble has just been what's killing them. And when Donovan Clingan's in, it's a little easier. You got a really good shot blocker down low to try to make up for some of that, but at times they've just struggled with that part of the game.
Yeah, and I think too where DePaul really has been improving, and with Caleb Murphy now coming on the scene and joining the team after his the whole year injury to his wrist, I think what DePaul really can do is dribble, drive, and then kick it out to 3. So I think that'll be a big matchup, a big key point for DePaul. I think that, like you said, that UConn has been defending the 3 well, but I think that dribble penetration will be key to DePaul getting anywhere and getting that 3. I mean, it is DePaul at home. They're notably better shooters at home, shooting somewhere in the high 30s, low 40s, I believe, off the top of my head. And Mo Gibson is actually leading the Big East in 3-point shooting right now. And should be a good game from that perspective. If DePaul gets early 3s, I think look out, it'll be a close one.
Yeah, and I think one thing I didn't mention is this UConn team really has struggled on the road since Big East play has started. I know this team is really hungry to kind of get that road win that they've been really looking for. They beat Butler on the road in the opener, but then lost to Marquette, Xavier, and Providence all on the road. Against Seton Hall, they were up 17 at one point and blew that lead on the road there. So I know, and I had Alex on the podcast just yesterday and talking about it, like the team is really motivated to go out there. They've got DePaul and Georgetown this week, and I think they feel like, these are the two games that you could really use to get this season back on track a little bit and take things in that direction they're looking for. And when it comes to, again, shedding some of those road woes, I think everyone sees this as an opportunity where they might be able to come in and get one.
Yeah, and I think to that same point, I think, maybe they're looking ahead a little bit too much, looking past DePaul, looking to Georgetown, given that Georgetown beat DePaul last week, unfortunately, and ended their 29-game streak or 28-game streak, whatever it is. But I think that actually DePaul being on the front end will play into DePaul's hands as far as maybe a little bit overlooking afterthought, so to speak.
I hope not, because right now this UConn team really shouldn't be overlooking anyone the way they've slumped the past month. And I think I saw a quote from one of the beat guys put out that Dan Hurley said they're treating this game like it's a Final Four game. So I'm hoping from a UConn perspective, at least, they do carry that mentality into this game, because again, I think for this team, if they want to get to showing the potential and the ceiling that it looked like they had earlier in the year, this is a game they really have to win.
Sure. No, I hear you there. Hopefully they are overlooking DePaul and those threes are flying fast. You talked about Dan Hurley, and he's been known to get into it with the refs. I don't know who the refs are this game yet. They haven't announced that obviously yet, but what do you expect from Coach? To be on his best behavior, or what do you think you're going to get out of him tomorrow?
Yeah, I think he'll be on good behavior. Since he had COVID, he wore the mask in the game at home against Butler and didn't run into any troubles there, and then was good against Xavier, mask free. So I think he's turning the corner a little bit on some of that. But hey, I think UConn fans love how animated he gets. The players love that he's always got their back. So I think you'll see some of those classic and vintage Dan Hurley facial cues and all that stuff. And I'm sure some of the refs will get it a little bit at some point tomorrow.
I think we can all agree that we don't want to see James Breeding tomorrow night.
Oh, I think every UConn fan would agree with you. I think Jeff Anderson's the new guy, though. He's been doing some UConn games of late, and they haven't been thrilled with him. So if you don't see those two, I think UConn fans will be thrilled. Certainly.
So yeah, DePaul. The last time DePaul beat UConn I was a student 15 years ago in 2007. So DePaul has ended already one lengthy streak this year against Villanova. I think that it'd be nice to see another one go down tomorrow. Both of those streaks started when I was a student, so for my sake, and I think for all of DePaul fans out there, I think we're hoping for a W tomorrow. So that said, you got anything else for me?
No, I think it's going to be a good one. I know, again, as I said, UConn really looking to get back on track. You guys looking to end that streak there. I think it makes for a really good matchup. All these Big East games are always fun, and I think it's going to be a good one.
Sure. So, yeah, absolutely. I think it will, and I hope tomorrow you guys are having a 4-hour long into the morning Twitter space talking about how you guys just lost to DePaul.
Oh, if we lose this one, I might need to just go to bed after that one. So we'll see what happens.
Well, thanks for joining me today, Jared. I appreciate it.
You bet. Anytime.
Really appreciate Jared coming on from the Connecticut Scoreboard Podcast and giving us all that scouting report of the UConn Huskies that are coming in to Wintrust. I think that 3-point shooting, it's been our mantra this year. You live by the 3, you die by the 3. Got to make those early shots drop. and then everything goes from there and everything falls into place. I think there's a real good chance that DePaul can hang with this UConn team, especially given where UConn is right now. Sure, they're hungry for a W. They need it. They need it to, they're on the cusp of the top 25 teams in the country. And a lot of their fans even say they shouldn't be ranked. But you never know. DePaul's at home. They need to win themselves. We need to win, and I'd love nothing more than to see the guys come out and take down this number 24 team in the country. It's fourth ranked team coming into DePaul, or playing DePaul, I should say, in the last few games. So really need this win. Really need to see guys like Deshaun Nelson come out and do what he did against Xavier again. Mo and Javen scoring their getting theirs, because they will. They're usually good for at least 16 each. So go out there, get a good game from Zion Cruz, get a good game from Phil, and of course Caleb Murphy as well. That's all. You need all those guys clicking to get this W tomorrow. So let's get out there and go Blue Demons.